The January 2025 season brings us Iron Patriot, a game-changing card with endless possibilities. In this video, I'll explore his synergies, showcase decks for every series, and share whether I think he's worth your money. Let's dive in to see what makes Iron Patriot so special. The Season Pass also includes all of this art. I personally like the Iron Patriot variant. The other two are a little less good, and the card backs are
trash.
Iron Patriot has a unique ability. I don't know if that makes him good or not. He reminds me a lot of Valentina, who generates a 6-cost card, but at a discount, but it also has less power. So in my mind, this is kind of power creep on that card, which does make it better than what Valentina is. This also presents the interesting dynamic of trying to beat out somebody for that spot, because once you play Iron Patriot, your opponent will see he's on the board and then have time to try to block you from getting that generated card. So there's a couple of interesting dynamics. You might not get the card that he generates to even use, and if you do, it may or may not be a good thing. Most of the cards it generates are good, so let's cover that briefly. We're starting with the 4-cost cards. You can see the very first one stinks. You do not want a 0, 1, -1, Mr. Negative. All the rest are, you have to remember, even though they're 4-cost cards, if you get them, if you're able to win Iron Patriot's lane, they will all be 0-cost cards. So you need to have the mentality that you just have a 0-1 or a 0-5 or a 0-4, and if it has an ability, cool. If not, it's just a wasp or a yellow jacket without a negative penalty. So getting a tech card like my boy Shang-Chi is fantastic. A 0-3 Shang-Chi. Unbelievable. Shuri is good. Dracula's a little weird. Galacta is great. Beta Ray Bill is a little hit or miss. You'll have to draw into the hammer, or he's just a 0-6. So as I'm going, Phoenix Force, one of the interesting uses that you don't get to do a lot with this card is Shang-Chi protection. So if you expect a Shang-Chi, you can play Phoenix Force and bring back that card they just took away from you. Other than that, the cards are all over the place. You may or may not get something good at the high end just on power. We have 0-10s. Sentry's a little weird. Misery might be a little awkward. So it's kind of to be seen in practice how this plays out if you get a 4-cost card. There were 50 or some odd 4-cost cards. At the 5-cost slot, we have 36. Now, these cards will cost 1. So a 1 -8 Hobgoblin, that's nice. A 1-0 Iron Man is just busted. Same thing with a blue Marvel, that's fantastic. Kang is a little weird, but I mean, you get to see what the opponent is doing, I guess. I was requested to create a Kang deck. We will see if that materializes. A 1-5 Adam Warlock is good. Same thing with Sarah, Valkyrie. So Nimrod, you may not be able to take full advantage, but a 1-6. So a lot of these cards, as I'm browsing through here, even if they don't have great functionality, what you do get out of them is just a cheap card for a high stat line. So Iron Patriot is a 2-cost. If you get a 5-cost, then that bumps it up to a 3-cost total. And then depending on what the power is, you add that to the 3 from Iron Patriot. So Iron Patriot ends up being a 3-cost, 10 power, potentially, card, which is pretty good. And that's ignoring completely the high end of the abilities you might get. There are 34 6-cost cards right now, and they kind of range. Again, these are going to cost 2 if you're able to win the Iron Patriot lane and get the card generated. Having a Gore, sure, that's nice. Arnim Zola, a 2-0 Arnim Zola, okay. A 2-8 Apocalypse is just a 2-8. So a lot of these are just decent value. A Doctor Doom is kind of nice. Depending on what you're playing, a Spectrum might actually come in handy. A 2-9 Eliath, of course, is just fantastic. Mockingbird, potentially she gets down to 0 if you're playing a deck around card generators, or if you're playing him in a Thanos list, potentially. Red Hulk is nice. Scar, you could potentially discount to 0 because it's a 2/10 and then gets another discount on top of that if you have a 10 cost card. The only 6 cost card that is super dangerous, of course, is Destroyer at 216. If you're not running Cosmo or a 0 to completely nullify Destroyer's effect, that might be a completely useless card. But because the pool of cards being pulled from is 4, 5, and 6, that you're going to get some bad pulls. You're going to get a Mr. Negative. You're going to get a Destroyer. But by and large, the pool of cards that it's pulling from is good enough where you should almost always have decent value, even if it's not crazy value. Here is the Series 2 version of an Iron Patriot deck. I have a lot of Guardians, as you may see. He kind of has some synergy with the Guardians, in addition to some priority-based cards because you want to be winning the Iron Patriot lane. So something like a Medusa is fantastic because that's just a 2/5. You compare that with either a Iron or Rocket Raccoon as well on turn 3, because if they will challenge the Iron Patriot lane, that's just a 1/4. You've added 9 power with Rocket and Medusa, or Rocket and Star-Lord, or just Groot by himself. You have Cosmo to protect some of your cards or fight back against certain decks. Gamora is here just because she's just a kind of a powerful card when you're at this level. Vision is also fantastic because you can slide around his power. Shang-Chi, of course, everybody at this point should be familiar with his value. Hawkeye is a good turn 1 play because then you can go Hawkeye into Iron Patriot, into Medusa and Rocket, or Star-Lord and Rocket. You have Nightcrawler because potentially, depending on what locations are, you can fill up a lane with Nightcrawler to really hammer home your Iron Patriot because you're not always going to be able to play him on turn 2. So being able to fill a lane, that way you maximize the power, and then you can move Nightcrawler out and get another card in there is good. So this is the Series 2 version. The Series 3 version leans more heavily into card generation. So for that, we have Agent Coulson and Moon Girl to benefit, and Maria Hill. To benefit from that card generation, we have the Collector and Devil Dinosaur. Invisible Woman is here, just in case you want a Moon Girl behind the Invisible Woman, for a last turn or a end of game effect where Devil Dinosaur can duck a Shang-Chi, and now after Moon Girl reveals, now Devil Dinosaur shoots all the way up and it's too late to Shang-Chi him. Juggernaut is here because that's a super easy way to win an Iron Patriot lane. Just Juggernaut it. I expect to see Mobius on the rise, especially in the first week. So having Rogue here, that way when you win your Iron Patriot lane, you can Rogue the Mobius, and now you can get that discount potentially. Cosmo is here just for disruption and to protect your Collector from things like Shadow King, or to protect Devil Dinosaur from Shang-Chi. Agent Coulson can just generate very good random cards, 4 and 5. Moon Girl, if you want to double, you can do that. Double like the card you draw from Iron Patriot, or you can just buff up your Devil Dinosaur. So for the no limits version of the deck, I'm still continuing on Moon Girl. I have been trying to create a good Moon Girl deck, one that I think is good, one that I think is unique and pretty competitive. So this is my latest crack at it. We will see how it does. I, of course, have a high end of She-Hulk, which is good if you soak some energy, of course, going into the last turn. There is Rogue. We already covered her use against Mobius. Hydra Bob, which I personally do not have. That is good for winning an Iron Patriot lane, a 1/5. Of course, I've covered Rocket in a previous deck. Ant-Man, Sunspot, and Wasp are just good if you're soaking energy. Wasp is good if you need to remove a card from your hand for Moon Girl. Also, I've thrown in Victoria Hand, who gives +2 to cards that were generated in your hand. That includes Moon Girl. That includes the Iron Patriot card. So getting that +2 on, let's say, a Wasp, that's a 0/3. Ant-Man's a 1/3. Same thing with Rocket. A Hydra Bob potentially if you have him in your hand. And then you have the Quinjet down to just further discount those Moon Girl cards potentially. Juggernaut, of course, is good to win an Iron Patriot lane, but also if you just finish off the game with that and stack your power in another lane so you know they won't be able to beat it, that's good as well. All of these decks are just starting points. They really need to be put through their paces and refined. By no means do I think these are perfect decks that will smash the meta on day one. They will definitely need some refinement. But that is the fun. And that is what will be happening for players that decide to get Iron Patriot, and in this case, Victoria Hand. I wanted to briefly touch on the entire season's new cards, just to speak to synergies with Iron Patriot. Victoria Hand, we covered, she has synergy with Iron Patriot. Moonstone more so has synergy with Victoria Hand, so in a roundabout way has synergy with Iron Patriot. Ares and Bullseye do not. So I don't know if at some point you could really put all of these cards together. It really seems like Victoria Hand and Iron Patriot are the ones with the most amount of synergy. And we will see where the season goes from here. So will Nerd Dynamite be getting the season pass? Yeah, I think I will. But also, if you skip this season, I wouldn't be mad at you. The cards here, while I'm sure they will settle into homes and be decent, I'm not convinced that they will be super powerful cards. You will see them a ton, but think back to the Surtur season where we saw them a ton, and yes, it ended up getting nerfed. It's still a good card, but you don't see it a lot, and people don't walk away going, this is a super powerful card. There's Agent Venom, which still to this day is a very powerful card. People just aren't using it that much. So Iron Patriot, I think, will just be a decent season pass card. The reason I'm thinking about getting it is because just from a deck building perspective, it is interesting. There isn't really another card that does exactly what this card does. There are some cards that are close, like the card I talked about. I keep forgetting this card's name. She's a 2-cost, I think, 2/3. She's not good, so I'm not even bothering looking it up.
Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. Actually, it's Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
So this card, I can see it finding a home, but overall, I think it's very passable. But from my perspective and creating decks, if I wasn't creating decks for videos, I would pass on this card. Easy pass. No second thought. The only reason I'm going to get this card, if I do, still on the fence, if I do, it is because it presents an interesting, I could present interesting decks, and you know that's what this channel is about. So that would be the reason why I get it, but I fully support anybody that is not going to get it. You will be able to climb to infinite without this card and win conquest and do anything else in the game, because overall I don't think it will be a super strong card. It will just be decent to good. Thanks for reaching the end of the video. Thanks to all the members, of course. Let me know what you think of the card. Do you think I'm wrong? I took a pretty strong stance in saying this card will either be mediocre or decent, but definitely passable. So let me know what you think. Until next time.